Good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be. My name is Karen Wills. I'm Senior Vice President here at Strategicon. And I would like to just welcome you to our newest Straight Talk of our series that we have, Game Changers for Biotechs. So I am going to be a disembodied voice that you hear occasionally during this webinar, because I'm going to toss it over to my colleagues, my CEO, Anka Kopescu, and our panelist, Leif, Kuse. So just before we get started, let me just give you a couple of housekeeping things. Don't forget to take a look at the handouts that we've uploaded for you. That'll provide you some additional information on both Strategicon and Pharall. And also, if you have any questions, please put them in the question tab of your control panel, and we will be monitoring those during the course of the webinar, and we'll get to as many of those as possible during the webinar. And for those that we don't get to, we will actually provide you an answer post the webinar. And then the last thing is to just keep an eye out for our next Straight Talk, which will be happening in early January. We've actually done a number of different surveys for people in the industry, and we'll be going over some of those results and what it means for the industry. So keep an eye out for that one. So with that, I'm now going to hand it over to Anka. And Anka, I'll leave it to you to introduce yourself and Leif.
Thank you so much, Karen. Hello, everyone. My name is Anka Kopescu. I'm the CEO of Strategicon and Pharma, and probably by now you know we are the developers of Clinical Maestro, which is a high efficiency, highly innovative technology platform for managing all aspects of clinical business operations, such as clinical study planning, budgeting, R&D sourcing, and vendor management. And I'm quite happy to have Leif with me today, an industry leader, long-term partner of Strategicon. Leif, would you like to introduce yourself?
No, thank you very much, Anka, and I'm really excited to be here. Thanks for inviting me. So my name is Leif Kuse, CEO of Pharall. I'm working in this industry now, I think something about 18, 20 years, something like that. Mainly on sponsor side, supporting small and mid-sized biopharma companies in outsourcing their clinical trials, CRO selection, vendor selection, but also another bunch of services around clinical trials. And what we actually do at Pharall is we bundle the purchasing volume of many biopharma companies worldwide, and in our alliance of biotechs, we then outsource those clinical trials as bundles, which gives us better terms and discounts and services from our CROs.
Excellent. So as you all know, the topic of today is game changers for biotech. So we'll talk about the game changers, but we'll start by talking about some of the challenges that the biotechs are facing. And as you all know, biotechs are growing rapidly, staggering increase in the number of new drug approvals coming from biotechs, particularly in the last 5 years. We also know biotechs are focused on scientific innovation and sometimes do struggle in areas related to business aspects of running clinical trials. So, Leif, you've been working with a lot of emerging and small biotechs. What's your perspective on the challenges that the biotechs are facing today?
Yeah, beside all of those scientific challenges that we still face in all of those clinical trials, in the end, nature tells us what is right and what is wrong. But apart from that, budget is definitely one of the big constraints, especially in these times when it's very difficult to get to the next financing round. So this is really one bottleneck that we have, budgetary constraints. The other one is, to my experience, business volume, and this is because of business volume what we're going to outsource to our vendors. Usually small mid-sized biopharma companies just outsource 1 or 2 trials, every 2 or 3 years, which is not that best business volume that is super attractive to CROs. It is attractive to get this business once, but there's no recurring pipeline, which then once the award is done, the attractiveness goes down. And with that, it's also another challenge in vendor management and vendor governance. I think this is the other aspect where small mid-sized biopharmas sometimes struggle. either their teams don't have the experience because they come from academia and preclinical, and vendor management of preclinical studies is very different part compared to clinical trials. And and maybe they don't have the resources on that. So very different reasons why that is, but from our perspective, these are the three areas.
Do you think that the biotechs know how to source when they start on the exciting journey of first in human, or not to say a phase 2 study? Already by the phase 3, they've gathered some experience, hopefully. Do they have the know-how in sourcing, in negotiating with the CROs, in even knowing who to bring to the table? And is that changing, or it's pretty much the same as we have seen in the last years?
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, it really depends. You cannot, say everything about all the biotechs. It's more like some biotech companies really have a very experienced senior management, and they know how to source. And they do their stuff quite right at the beginning. I mean, compared to what we're doing this now since 18 years. We've learned many lessons. We have all the T-shirts and the scars beyond that. And I mean, from that level, I would say there's always way to improve. But yes, there are some biotechs that have a senior management. They do it, but many don't, and it really starts with the very much basics, which they are not aware of. We have run a survey amongst CROs where they told us that 50% of the budgets that budget requests that they are receiving are without bid grids, which means all the biotechs get the bids on different formats, and then comparing this apples with apples is nearly impossible. And this is where the basics starts. So honestly, to my experience, you as a small biotech company, mid-sized biotech company, you're investing most of your funds into your clinical trial. So it's a good idea to find the right experts to help you allocate these sources in the best possible way.
Absolutely, and I think you brought up some statistics now. I would love to know what our audience is thinking in terms of the challenges that the biotechs are facing. And I know we have quite a few in the audience. Karen, can you help us bring up our poll?
Absolutely, I'll launch it right now.
Do you want to read it, or I can also read it?
The question being asked is, what do biotechs struggle with the most in outsourcing? Is it lack of in-house expertise? Is it lack of outsourcing processes? Is it the lack of technology, or the lack of purchasing power? So we'll give
and it's selecting one answer out of the 4.
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
Yep, that's correct. So the answers are populating in now. So just make sure everybody votes.
Really curious to see what the
I know, I cheat. I can see how the responses are going now, but
okay.
give it another couple of seconds, 10 seconds. It's not let you guys get your answers in. All right, I lied. It'll be like 5 seconds. Oh, there we go. We got some more. It'll give it a little bit more time. All right. Well, we're going to close it, and then I'll show you the responses. Then let me share. Can you guys see the responses?
Yeah.
Good.
Leif, what do you think? Are you surprised? You're curious.
Honestly, the items that they choose, lack of in-house outsourcing expertise. I mean, this is in our outsourcing department. This is exactly what we see as well, and this is where we are in, and providing this outsourcing department services. Lack of technology to aid in management. I mean, yes, definitely. Even if you have a bid grid, working with Excel works, but it's sometimes really a pain to do that. What I'm curious about is why people did not choose lack of purchasing power. Maybe they're not aware of that, but yeah, maybe we dive into that later. But what do you think?
Pretty much sharing the same thought as you. Actually, these 2 points make an ideal combo between our own partnership, Strategic and Pharall. But I do think then the purchasing power is a very subtle, nuanced item that requires awareness, because I think rarely the biotechs realize that they will be paying significantly more for example, CRO services and larger pharma. And there are many, many reasons behind it, including volume, which you touched upon, but also risk, the churn rate, which is high on the biotechs. And sometimes, drug may not work. The studies may even stop midway. Or there may be issues associated with financing. But also, very importantly, biotechs do not always have the capability of negotiating the rate cards or the know-how of negotiating the rates with the CROs, as of course large pharma do. And I know behind your concept at Pharall of group purchasing are addressing all of these challenges, from awareness down to the mechanics. And would like you to maybe tell us a little bit more about the group purchasing concept. I personally believe it's a game changer. But tell us more, tell us what it means, and tell us how it works.
Yeah, sure, of course, sure, I can do that. Honestly, it's not a rocket science. Group purchasing is very well known in all other industries, like in oil and gas, and in construction. Even hospitals do group purchasing when they do their purchasing stuff. So it's very well known. However, it's never been implemented in clinical trials, and that is what we do it here. Very quickly, in a nutshell. Group purchasing means if you do not just buy one car, but 3 cars, then the car dealer says, that's nice, you get additional discounts. And for us, this is the most important part. For the next 2 or 3 years, we roll out the red carpet for you, and you get the best services from our mechanics so that your car runs smoothly. And this is what we're doing with clinical trials. We bundle the purchasing volume of many biotech companies globally and outsource their clinical trials as bundles to CROs. And this gives us this higher purchasing volume, which is definitely attractive for CROs, which has different advantages. One is, of course, the cost reductions, because if you have a higher volume, you get a better discount. But the example with the mechanics is the thing that is more attractive from the quality and operational side, because you have now the attractiveness and the attention from your CROs, because you're part of a higher, bigger pipeline. So these problems like starting with the A team and then getting the B team, or going into change orders later on, is definitely an easier task, because you're working on the same eye level. But on the other side, it's also beneficial for CROs, because we are also allowed to communicate through from one client to the next client what the performance of the CROs are. So it's no longer this black box. Is this CRO in the bid defense meetings, is this CRO really providing us the service in the way that we expect him? We can then give feedback to new clients and tell, yeah, all the other clients are super happy with those CROs. So we cannot promise heaven on earth, but in the end, there's great certainty that this performance will keep on. So by that, we build a bubble of, I would say, a bubble of excellence, where in the end, all the partners in there, sponsors, CROs, and what we're doing, are really benefiting from this whole model. And this is what group purchasing is about.
Now, how are the CROs reacting to this? I imagine that there is not always an easy task to pull the biotechs together through the organization and go back to the CROs and say, hey, we've got these 5 biotechs working through us. Give us better rates, or give us a better team, or do you need to guarantee any volume? I'm curious from from the CRO perspective, how do they look at this new concept, and do they like it? I think you said they like it, but it's more of how do you package it?
Okay, so first question, do they like it? We have some CROs that said no, they didn't want to work with us and this model because it's a new approach, which is totally understandable for us. So, there's a learning curve in there, but very many CROs, approach us and say, hey, this is a nice, smart model because this, gives us the attention also from the sponsor side. I mean, who's going on LinkedIn posting, hey, we have a super CRO, they're doing a great job, we love it. Nobody does. How sad is that for CROs that are really doing a great job? Now, we are building a more structured framework around that to collect customer satisfaction and customer experience, and transport and communicate this to the next client, which is definitely beneficial. So yeah, they love it and it works. And bundling, the bundling piece is not that difficult thing. When we applied this business model to clinical trials, one major aspect that we need to take care of is that we are not changing the process in a way that it makes it more complicated, because now there's a third party involved there, like Pharall. So all the processes remain the same. CROs and sponsors, do their contracts like they have done that before, but they can also, get our additional expertise in how to do things a little bit better if they want to. But if they don't want to, if they have their own outsourcing department or something like that, they can do it just according to their processes. There's, everything remains the same, but adding to that all the advantages that I mentioned before, because we are now part of a group with a high volume. That's pretty much it. So it's very straightforward. It's easy to implement for everyone, and it doesn't change any processes. But we are happy to support to improve those processes with all our tools. One of the tools that we're using in collaboration with you, Anka.
Okay, that's great. We're going to talk about that in a second. I had one more question for our biotech audience. What does it take to join the group purchasing organization? They sign up, they contact you. Is there any geographical limitation? Like, I know you are based in Germany, so you probably have a wider network in Europe, but I imagine that a San Francisco biotech can join just as well.
Yeah, that's a very good question. So yes, our headquarters is in Germany. We also have a subsidiary in Canada, Montreal. So from there, we can also serve our US clients. The point is that, first of all, joining our GPO is totally easy. It's just a quick membership contract. It's not attached with any fees or anything like that. So if you're not, outsourcing anything, you still can, benefit from our advantages. But other than that, there's no strings attached. You can also, you're not obliged to, outsource to any of the CROs that we have pre-negotiated contracts with. You can include any CROs. So all your processes remain the same. It's super easy. And just signing a quick membership gets you on speed. So it's pretty much straightforward. What was your other question? Sorry, I lost it.
No, I was asking if there is any geographical limitation, but you already answered that by saying no. You work with any biotech.
Right, and this is the key. A group purchasing initiative in this industry does not work if you limit this to any region. So you need to be, global right from the beginning, and this is what we did, and it works.
Excellent. Are there any disadvantages?
No, honestly, there is no disadvantage. As I said, everything remains the same. You can just, pick the benefits. So yeah, it's quite easy.
I know we do. Oh, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to go back to our collaboration. We've collaborated on, let's say, 2 different areas. We've collaborated on planning and budgeting for clinical studies, and then we collaborated on sourcing. Let's start with the planning and budgeting. We touched a little bit at the beginning on the importance of the biotechs to have a predictable budget, even way before the study starts. In fact, there is quite a bit of planning at the clinical development level when you are looking at bringing a drug to the market, and you may need to run a number of studies and a number of scenarios and plan your cash accordingly. Typically, when you are in the early stages of planning, scenario analysis is very important as well, not only for the particular study that's starting or at the program level, at the portfolio level, if you have more than one asset, also potentially simulating the capital needs that you may have, or negotiating with large pharma, for example, for an R&D partnership. Tell us a little bit about your perspective of using Clinical Maestro with your clients.
Yeah, that's a very good question. And one of the questions that we typically, get, especially when we have those biotechs that are initiating a new clinical trial is, okay, can we have some benchmark data? Can we understand a little bit, we are currently evaluating different scenarios. Can you give us an idea of what a clinical trial would cost in this specific scenario? And this is something that is really, really beneficial. We run it just recently for another client. We also got a ballpark from a CRO, and the difference between what Clinical Maestro calculated and what the CROs was just something like 3%. I mean, this is, compared to the overall volume, is quite nothing, because you really can break down by everything. It's really nice. So this is really, really helpful in one term, just getting very quick a ballpark. There's not much information that you need at the beginning. You can drill down and put more data in there to get more accuracy, but just to have an idea of. But the other thing is, what I really like is the simulation thing, where you can then say, okay, if we're going to another region, if we have another schedule of events or anything like that, with that you can then simulate and model what the cost impact, but also the timeline impact of these changes are. And this is definitely helpful, because usually when you're in the strategic decision-making process, how would we like to set up our clinical trial strategy? You implement, things like and decisions like regulatory and scientific expertise, and how are we going to conduct the trial? But this budgetary financial aspect is not included in the decision-making process. With this model from Clinical Maestro, it is, and to me, this is the missing piece. It is super helpful.
And I know a great part of our collaboration is going beyond the software. Software is one piece, but the biotechs are looking for a solution. And the solution is not software alone. Sometimes they don't even have resources to operate or learn a new software. And this is where we've been partnering very well by making team members of Pharall being experts in Clinical Maestro, and guiding not only in the biotechs, not only in the interpretation of the data, but even in the assumptions and looking at optimization scenarios. Because sometimes it's hard. If you want to optimize for cost, you cannot quite increase number of sites or number of countries. If you want to optimize for time, for many reasons, then something has to give in on the cost side. And I know your team is assisting the biotechs with how to interpret data coming from Clinical Maestro. Do you have any comments on that? I know we've been working, but more for our audience.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you already did a very great job in setting up this software in a way that is quite intuitive. So it's super easy to just build up a scenario and to see what the costs are. So honestly, from that perspective, we are not definitely needed, but it is definitely helpful, because clients do not have to, I would say, onboard on the software. So they already have the experts within our team to get the stuff running. So we have clients that say, here's the protocol, run us the scenario. It's very easy and straightforward for them. But the other missing piece is also analyzing the data and get an understanding, why do the costs change into different scenarios, and does that make sense, and what is the outcome for us? So I mean, if you have different scenarios, like 4 or 5 scenarios, and you present this to your management, then you easily and quickly get the question, okay, why do the costs change, and what is that, and how do we understand this? And this piece of interpretation, this is what we put in to this as well, you know, as a slide sheet, that you in the end understand, yeah, this scenario is more expensive because of those reasons. So by that you can also learn, okay, what are the nuts and bolts that we need to tweak and twist to maybe optimize our clinical trial strategy in a way that we optimize financials, scientific outcome, and operations. But yeah, that's where we're collaborating, and it works quite well.
It does, and it works on the sourcing side, because it's surprising to me how very little pharma companies plan. They often rely on the expertise of the CRO to develop the plan. They, of course, spend a lot of time and energy in writing the protocol, but they don't always have an operational plan to simulate the outcome of the trial. And they are looking at the CROs to propose strategies. The CROs' proposals may vary greatly. We've seen that when we be to expertise and they may vary even in the country location, in the assumptions of the study, and having a plan before you source, it has two advantages. One, it provides a baseline benchmark, so you don't wait to see, oh, to the last minute, this is a $50 million trial. I wish I knew before we started or before we designed it this way. But also because you can leverage the benchmark during the due diligence process. Have you found that element of the sourcing useful? And also, is there an advantage for the biotechs to start with a set of templates, questions that, of course, you can help with your expertise in orchestrating how an RFP looks like, but at least you have a starting point?
Yeah, that's a very good point. And honestly, I have to say, yes, it is definitely helpful. We all know the situation when we have received all the first proposals from CROs, and then, you know, we get into this, I would say, iterative process where the client always asks, yeah, but can we change this? Can we change that? What is the cost impact of this? You know, what is the cost impact of that? Which is honestly quite a pain for CROs, because then they have to run the whole team into re-evaluating all the costs and collecting all the costs from the different departments to then provide a new budget for the client, which, you know, allocates a lot of resources from the CRO side, and it's time consuming. You have to, you know, wait for a couple of days until you get the response from the CROs, because they do a very diligent process and job in that, and recalculating this, because they know in the end, sometimes the client says, okay, we take this budget, go and sign it. So it needs to be very, very accurate. Whereas the client maybe, you know, don't need that accuracy at that point in time, but just wants to understand what is the cost impact. Is it a high? Is it a low? And is it a positive or negative impact? So with that, using Clinical Maestro and simulating those different scenarios is super helpful, because in, you know, a couple of hours, you can simulate different scenarios. So in one day, you have like 4, 5, 6 different scenarios on your table, and then you can pick and choose and understand what is the impact, the real impact on the cost on that. And once you have are focused on one strategy, then you can go back to your CRO and say, okay, we choose this, please give us another budget for that. So definitely it's a game changer here.
Well, another game changer, I think, is continuing with the concept of the group purchasing expertise and technology, not only at the beginning when you are doing CRO selection, because we all know that the initial RFP or initial contract is just the beginning of the journey. Then it gets more and more complicated when there are protocol amendments and there are change orders, and the biotechs do need the hand-holding after the initial purchasing, right? It's not just a, you know, one time, let's get the contract signed. You are looking maybe multi-year long trials, and you know, we know change is the name of the industry.
Yeah, totally. I mean,
So,
you know,
sorry, I hate to interrupt you guys, but we are at the bottom of the hour, and I know the two of you could keep going on and on for quite a while discussing the merits of this. We have one question that I would like to give you, and then I'll leave it to you, Anka and Leif, to end it. And I think this is more directed at Leif. Is how difficult is it to get a group of biotechs to all agree on the same CRO?
Shall I answer this question now?
So
go ahead.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so yeah, that's a great question, and there is no need to agree on one CRO. So the model is more straightforward. We have pre-negotiated discount tiers with our CROs, which means the more business we do with each of those CROs, the more discounts and better service levels everyone who is working with this CRO through Pharall is getting. So there is no obligation to choose one of those CROs, and we don't have to all agree on one of that. It's, all biotech companies, all sponsors are free to choose and pick the partner they want to go with. It's more like the more we can aggregate, the better it is for everyone, and that's what we do.
Well, I'm sure that's a relief to all of them now that they're not stuck with one CRO. So Anka, I'll leave it to you to wrap up.
Well, I know we are at the top of the hour. Very exciting discussion. I hope for the audience that this discussion kind of gave you ideas about different avenues that you may take when you may be, looking for additional resources, looking for know-how, looking for technology that can help speed up your processes and make them more efficient. So I hope that you would come to Leif and that you will come to us, and that together we are going to keep pushing forward the game changers. Group purchasing is something that I think it's absolutely fascinating. And Leif, I congratulate you for taking really the first step at this. I don't know any other organization that does what you do. And it's very important to bring awareness into the benefits of collaborating. Biotechs don't have to be alone. There is know-how and there is sharing. I'm sure, Leif, I was going to ask you, there must be sharing between the group members as well, no?
Yes, they do. And yeah, thank you very much for that, Anka. It was really a pleasure for joining this webinar today. Honestly, I love this collaboration, and I love this collaboration also in a way that, what you're doing is really bringing a new tool into this industry, which is really needed. And in the end, this is what, I think one of the hidden agendas and the hidden duties that we have as a GPO is also to look and screen the industry and see what are the new technologies, what are the new tools out there that we can use to optimize our process, to do things, just a little bit better than we did it yesterday. So thank you for that.
Well, excellent. So everyone, thank you for joining the webinar. Leif and I will also going to do a podcast, and that probably is going to come out in December. Come visit our website, and thank you again for joining today's talk. Have a wonderful rest of the day. Bye.